The aftermath was not something I stayed for. I had communicated the truth to you. They had been exposed for their treachery. My lack of reply had conveyed a great deal. It was my consistency that had brought them down. I did not seek retribution by yelling at them or exposing them in any additional detail. I simply allowed them to find themselves caught in the web of greed and dishonesty that they had constructed. To my own satisfaction, I reconstructed my life piece by piece, not in a hurry but with complete assurance. It is not out of pity but rather out of respect that I will be traveling to New Mexico this weekend with a bunch of new friends. These are individuals who are aware of the entire story yet have chosen to remain the same. Sadie, I am not the same person that I was a year ago. I am not the same person who lived in the shadow of shallow ties and expectations that were put on me. The light that I dwell in now is mine. And when I am surrounded by bright and wonderful days like this one, I am more conscious than I have ever been before that freedom does not come until one has been injured. The act of letting go of things that are no longer deserving of our attention is something that we choose to do when we have the fortitude to free ourselves from those things. As a poignant reminder, the story of Sadie serves as a compelling reminder that the most heartbreaking betrayals can sometimes come from the individuals who we trust the most. On the other hand, she chose to take a stance with power and reason rather than retaliating in anger against the person who had taken advantage of her. Sadie's purpose was not limited to only defending her value when she was in a state of misery. An exceptional grace may be used to characterize the manner in which she regained her freedom, dignity, and respect for herself. Within the realm of reality, there are certain wounds that cannot be avoided. The manner in which we respond, on the other hand, is what characterizes who we are: resilient, self-sufficient, and no longer prepared to make concessions for things that we do not deserve. Regarding Sadie's capacity to triumph over betrayal and effectively reconstruct her life, what are your thoughts on the matter? It would be greatly appreciated if you could share your thoughts in the comments box below. Additionally, if you would like to get additional uplifting and thought-provoking stories about life and family-related themes, please subscribe to the channel. I would not give in to this. I would not allow them to look at me as I broke. I would force them to pay for it. As I waited till the ideal time came. Clara had prepared a surprise birthday supper for Lucas at our house, and she had invited all of our closest friends and family members to help celebrate. This was her huge gesture, her way of establishing her position in his life, and possibly even a signal that she intended to take my place. She went so far as to ask me to assist her with the decorations and the menu, completely ignorant to the tempest that was developing behind my peaceful exterior. She enthused, "It's going to be so special, Sadie," with her eyes gleaming with a twisted enthusiasm. "It's going to be so special. He deserves the best." There was finally the evening of the supper. The home was filled with the sounds of laughing and music, as well as the scent of the feast that Clara had insisted on preparing, which was Lucas's favorite dish. While she was acting out the part of the loyal sister-in-law, she strode through the room with an air of self-assurance, enjoying in the glow of everyone's praise. With his arm casually slung around her shoulder, Lucas beamed at her, completely unaware of what was going on. As an objective observer of my own life, I found myself observing them. My mind was as keen as a razor, and my heart was as cold as a log. The main meal was brought out, and everyone started eating at that moment. The glass was raised by Clara, who was beaming with a sense of self-satisfaction. "To Lucas!" she exclaimed, her voice resonating throughout the room. "To the most wonderful man, my brother-in-law, who truly deserves all the happiness in the world." Each and every person shared her sentiment. After taking a taste of my wine, I smiled to myself. When I said, "And I have a toast too," my voice was calm and clear, and it cut through the happy talk that was going on around me. I became the focus of everyone's attention. The expression on Lucas's face was one of mild unease, and there was a trace of anxiety in his eyes. A faint frown appeared on Clara's face, which caused her smile to waver. I raised my glass and looked directly into Lucas's eyes. I started out by saying, "To Lucas," with a steady tone in my voice, "who has shown me what it means to betray someone truly." There was a wave of perplexity that spread over the room. After that, I turned to my sister and added, "And to Clara, who has shown me that blood is not always thicker than water." Absolute and resolute silence came upon the room. Suddenly, the music stopped playing. There was no longer any laughter. There was a clattering sound of forks hitting plates. Lucas's face was pale and pale. It appeared as though Clara was a deer caught in the headlights. "What are you talking about, Sadie?" With a raspy voice, Lucas stutteringly spoke. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and stated, "I'm talking about this," throughout the conversation. I linked it to the smart TV that was located in the living room, which was typically utilized for watching movies on television. A grid of surveillance footage appeared on the enormous screen as it flickered to life. It showed Lucas and Clara tenderly hugging in our kitchen and whispering secrets in our living room. Their faces were close together, and their hands were intertwined. The audio played, which included their whispered discussions and the affectionate nicknames they used for one another. The atmosphere in the room erupted. Shocked whispers, gasps, and angry murmurs were heard. Lucas jumped to his feet, his cheeks flushed with anger as he did so. "What are you doing, Sadie? What are you doing? Turn off that device." "No," I responded with a hard delivery. "Everyone ought to be able to view this. It is imperative that everyone is aware of the truth regarding the excellent man that you are, Lucas, and the devoted sister that you are, Clara." The tears that were flowing down Clara's face caused her to scream, "You psycho! Why would you do that? How could I?" My response was a sarcastic laugh that came out of my mouth. "How could you possibly do that? At my place of residence? Who is my husband with? What about my very own sister?" The chaos broke out. Disgusted, friends turned their heads away. The members of the family were arguing with one another in a passionate whisper. When Lucas attempted to take the remote, I was able to keep a firm grip on it. "It's all on there, Lucas," I remarked, pointing to the screen in their presence. "Every kiss that was stolen, every lie that was told. 7 months of it in total." He turned his gaze first to the TV, then to Clara, and then to me. All of his swagger fell apart. In an uncontrollable manner, Clara sunk into her chair and began to cry. The color of his mother, Patricia, had changed to a horrifying shade of green. I proceeded, my voice becoming increasingly powerful. "To tell you the truth, Lucas, I have always believed that our marriage was founded on honesty. However, it turned out that it was constructed on a highly unstable foundation of falsehoods and dishonesty. Clara, I have always been under the impression that I could entrust you with anything. It seems that I was mistaken." Suddenly, the dinner came to an end. Embarrassed and offended, friends hurriedly left the social gathering. Some members of the family remained, a whirlwind of disbelief and rage. The two individuals, Lucas and Clara, were surrounded and confronted with a plethora of inquiries and accusations. The meticulously woven web of lies that they had crafted had started to unravel in front of everyone's eyes. I do not consider myself to be the kind of lady who would look through her husband's possessions. On the other hand, during that afternoon, when I was cleaning out the coat closet in the hallway, which was always a battleground of old receipts, spare keys, and baseball tickets from who knows when, something slid out of the closet. It was as silent and unexpected as a soundless slap, and it was a Polaroid snapshot. I did not give it a second thought before picking it up. On the other hand, the moment the image started to take shape, I had the feeling that my heart had stopped beating. The photograph was not the kind of old photograph that people save for the sake of looking back on the past. No. This was the kind of shot that can only be taken when someone is attempting to capture something that is kept a secret. Something like this is the kind of moment that should never be made public to the general population. There were 2 single people present. A close one, without any clothing on. You could not tell them apart by a single article of clothing. The individual in question was my husband, Lucas, who was 38 years old and served as the chief executive officer of a technology company located in Austin, Texas. His powerful shoulders and the teardrop-shaped birthmark that was positioned on his lower back were immediately recognizable to me. I had kissed that birthmark as many times as I could remember. When you have been married for 7 years, it is impossible to forget those things. But the woman who was standing next to him was the one who drained the air from my lungs. One side of her face was obscured. However, the long chestnut hair and the inclination of her head, which was a combination of shyness and intentionality, kindled something that was highly recognizable. I was unable to move as I stood in the corridor, holding the photograph in my hand. My own heartbeat could be heard echoing around the house since it was so silent. The house that Lucas and I had refurbished together the previous year, where we had battled over paint swatches and giggled as we sprayed each other with primer, suddenly felt like it belonged to someone else. Every single thing, every single piece of furniture, all of a sudden felt heavy with the weight of this new and dreadful information. Looking at the wedding photo that was displayed on the mantelpiece, which had my beaming face next to Lucas's, I distinctly recall experiencing a sudden and icy disconnection. Who exactly was that woman, who was so optimistic and trusting? I was curious about the identity of the woman seen in the photograph, who appeared to be draped over my spouse. For a moment, my thoughts raced through each and every interaction and casual acquaintance. I mentally scanned through the people who worked with Lucas, including my friends and our neighbors. Chestnut curls that are very lengthy. Her head was held in a manner that was very unique. I was wondering why it felt so familiar. I felt a rush of nausea hit me all at once. When I was in the hallway, the air seemed to get more dense and press in on me. It was necessary for me to know. I had to get a look at her profile. As I typed Lucas's password into my phone, my fingers were fumbling around as I brought out my phone. It was a straightforward code, the date of our wedding. The irony is harsh. The first thing I did was go straight to his photo gallery and scroll through hundreds of pictures, including fuzzy selfies, pictures of our dog, and vacation pics. None of it. I then attempted to use his social media. LinkedIn was a professional platform, while Facebook was primarily used for family updates. There are no hints. There was a beginning of panic. Without a doubt, this photograph is not a chance hookup. The closeness of their posture, the meticulous framing, and the unadulterated purpose that lies behind the photograph. While this was going on, this was a romantic connection. While I was opening his email, my hands were shaking as I looked for anything that might be suspect. There are emails connected to employment, bulletins, and bills. None of it. The woman was wearing a thin, delicate silver bracelet on her wrist, and just as I was about to quit up, I noticed a minute feature in the photograph that was virtually impossible to notice. The bracelet was silver. One little charm in the shape of a heart was attached to it. My chest was filled with a chilling sense of foreboding. I was familiar with that bracelet. The sight was familiar to me. When I entered my own closet, I did so in a thoughtful and slow manner. I was searching for it, and my heart was beating so hard against my ribs. It was there, hidden away in my jewelry box, a bracelet that matched with the other one. Last Christmas, Lucas had presented them to us as a gift. Mother and daughter bracelets that are identical. I was able to remove the blood from my face. I felt a tightening in my chest. No. That is not possible. Not of her. In fact, it was Clara, my sister. When I finally understood it, it was like a punch to my body. It's Clara, my sibling who is younger. Once our parents had passed away, the one that I had essentially reared my own children. The person who had been standing next to me as my maid of honor, wiping away the tears of joy that I had shed. They were the person I confided in, with whom I shared both my greatest joys and my worst concerns. The person who was meant to be my ride or die was Clara. Every moment that I had spent with her over the past few months was relived in my imagination. I had previously misunderstood her indirect glances at Lucas as a sign of affection between sisters. Her repeated visits, which were usually accompanied by an explanation, "Just wanted to catch up, Sadie. Thought I'd drop by with some cookies." The manner in which she constantly appeared to be aware of Lucas's schedule, showing up at the exact moment that he was at home. I had misunderstood to be inside jokes the knowing smiles that she would exchange with him when they were eating supper together. To say that the betrayal was so terrible and so incomprehensible would be an understatement. Not only was it a betrayal committed by my husband, but it was also committed by my own flesh and blood. Due to the fact that the two individuals whom I trusted the most in the world had colluded behind my back, my house had become a place where lies were spread. In the following few days, there was a haze of repressed wrath and cold, calculated planning coming together. The confrontation did not occur. Not at this time. My objective was to amass further evidence in order to construct a secure case. I set up call recording on the landline, put covert cameras in the kitchen and living room, and even discovered a covert application to monitor Lucas's phone activities. I deployed all of these devices simultaneously. Every grin, every touch that appeared to be completely innocent, and every word that was murmured became a piece of the puzzle, confirming the awful truth. On the camera stream, I was able to observe them. The way that Clara would sneak into our house while Lucas was allegedly at work, Their hushed discussions in the kitchen, their stealthy glances, and the way that he would softly touch her arm as he brought her the coffee were all things that we will never forget. Despite the fact that each new piece of evidence was a fresh blow to the heart, it also served to strengthen my determination.